Great. Well, thanks, Jeremy, so much, and it's good to be with all of you. I was asked to talk today about some of the work that I do in conjunction with an organization that wasn't mentioned during the introduction, but I am the vice chair of a small nonprofit called the U.S. Heartland China Association. The chair of our board is former Missouri Governor Bob Holden, and we work to try to promote the interests of the U.S. heartland states with China. These are the 20-something states in the middle of the country, and we work on connectivity that facilitates awareness, trade, exchanges as a part of the U.S. that doesn't frequently have as much exposure to either the nuances in U.S.-China relations or the opportunities. And so in trade, we work on agricultural exports, of course. We have a lot of support from the Soybean Association. We connect American growers and researchers in ag with Chinese counterparts to look at the future of food systems. We have also focused on health systems and medical exchanges, which are, very booming and popular in the central part of the U.S. and looking for opportunities with China. This year, we're going to hold our fifth annual U.S.-China Agricultural Roundtable in Henan Province in June, and we'll have a pretty large delegation of students and teachers, businesses, grower associations, and local and national officials also participating in that. We will be working closely with the U.S. Embassy and also with chambers of commerce in the organization of that event. And Eric, we work often with the AmCham in Shanghai, also your counterparts in Beijing and elsewhere throughout China. On exchanges, we work on education and local government exchanges and facilitating cultural programming. Some of the examples of things we've been doing, we sponsor students from Heartland educational institutions to travel to China. Very much have been focusing our efforts on historically Black colleges and universities in the central part of the country. Many of these students receive scholarships from Heartland businesses to travel to China. And of course, they would probably otherwise not have the opportunity to go to China. So we're very proud of our efforts in this area. These students visit Chinese agricultural universities and they connect with their Chinese counterparts on their various areas of study. We've taken them to tours of farms, etc., various agricultural processing places in China. The U.S. Heartland China Association also promotes Chinese language study in educational institutions in the middle of America. We have an annual Chinese Teachers Award that we give, and these teachers come to us recommended by schools all throughout the Midwest. As you may know, there's a recent report out from the U.S.-China Education Trust noting concerns about a coming gap in the pipeline of China expertise in the U.S. And we think that Americans will need to know more about China in the future, not less. And we think that such knowledge should not be overly concentrated on the two coasts, East Coast and West Coast. So we very much have been interested in supporting Chinese language learning, cultural learning, and teaching in the heartland of America. We also facilitate exchanges among local government officials to explore economic opportunities, and we compare notes between the delegations on things like municipal management and all kinds of challenges that local government officials face. We have an annual Mississippi Yangtze River Forum where we have local government officials meet and share experiences that river communities are having with issues like climate change, economic development, health, and other topics. This work has been difficult, I would say, and has become more so, I would say, recently. Exchanges between the US and China are becoming more fraught. And regarding visas, I think policies are becoming more uncertain and restrictive on both sides. I was hoping at one point, in the past couple of years that this would have kind of taken a turn, but as we've heard from earlier presentations, it doesn't seem like the focus on sort of the China initiative, et cetera, has completely abated and may be, re-emerging. I think I work at a university, at Yale University, and we see Chinese students continuing to have problems, being deported, visa renewals not being issued. Chinese scholars have been having problems, and U.S. scholars going to China also having problems getting visas and being worried about traveling back and forth. So travel back and forth and exchanges, I think, are unfortunately becoming more difficult just as we need to have more people going back and forth in order to try to understand each other better and dispel some of the, misapprehensions that are out there. Um, I think one problem is that U.S. policy toward China coming from the U.S. administration is not very clear. And so agencies oftentimes do not have formal guidelines in carrying out our policy toward China and are often arbitrary, and a lot of actions appear to be quite politicized. This has already been mentioned by several people on the call. I think a lot of activity related to China is ripe for fear-mongering and weaponization in the context of the partisanship that we see in the U.S. And that is, I'm afraid, especially true in the geographical area where we are working. You're probably aware of the proliferation of state-level legislation aimed at activities related to China. I won't go into it, but we may have people on the call who can speak to some of the specifics there. Of course, there are a lot of things to be concerned about where the Chinese government is concerned, but I think our organization is very well aware of these risks, and we don't believe that the risks overwhelm the important work of increasing knowledge and exposure and opportunities for people in the heartland to be able to make these connections, especially with the kind of care that we put into it. We don't take any funding from China. All of our funding comes from our sponsors and from foundations. Unfortunately, our current funding picture is pretty unsustainable. So we're hoping to make some gains in that area, but we are determined not to be intimidated. We're going to continue. And we hope very much that the upcoming summit between President Trump and President Xi Jinping, when President Trump travels to Beijing, might help to remind Americans, but especially agencies dealing with these issues, that China is not really optional for the U.S. It includes all areas of the U.S., not just the two coasts. And I hope that that's a good lead in for Susan to talk about the upcoming summit that we definitely hope actually happens next month, May 14th and 15th. So I'm happy to take any questions from folks at the end of the discussion.